Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to The Drunken Turkey Show, your one-stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to The Drunk Turkey Show. I'm your host. Alongside with me, as always, as usual, Jaime G and Big Blue. He just got taken out by the FBI again. Jaime, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Did you see me Vogue? I started up with the Vogue.
I saw you doing something. I couldn't identify what it was, though.
Might have been gang signs. I'm not really sure.
I thought it was gas. Either way, it looked pretty cool. Welcome everybody to the show. So we have a new guest, a special guest in the show in the house tonight. She's a journalist. He's a lawyer. Together, their murder sheet. Welcome, Anya Kane and attorney Kevin Greenlee. How's it going, y'all?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the show. Big fan. I've listened to you guys for a little while, mostly covering the Delphi case. Recently found out you guys were also covering the Idaho. With Delphi, did you guys just start covering it immediately, or was that a case that had happened and then you covered it a little bit later down the road?
Yeah, we definitely covered it a little bit later down the road. Our focus at first was actually restaurant murders, which we're still interested in, but we've sort of broadened our approach. When we moved back to Indiana, Delphi was definitely the case everyone was talking about. Kevin's sister actually kept on recommending that we cover it and saying, like, why can't we get some new information? It's been all these years and we still don't know a lot of details about it. And we were kind of like, yeah, why, it's a horrifying case. We felt like, why has it not been solved? What's going on with the investigation? And there was so much conjecture and interest online, but not a lot of hard facts.
How surprised were you guys when Richard Allen was arrested?
It was weird because we heard about an arrest 2 days in advance from a source that we trusted. So it wasn't like we were doubting it, but we didn't feel comfortable going that much out on a limb because we didn't have a name. We didn't know what the heck was going on. So we actually had a few days where we were doing normal things, going to Target, but basically being what is happening? And just it was kind of it was a very weird experience.
And it was shocking because it was a name we hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Richard Allen.
He was not on our list.
And we have a lot of great sources, and none of our sources had heard of him either. This seemed to happen very, very quickly.
Yes.
It seemed like it. It seemed like the police had some information that they were holding close to the vest, at least for our information at this point, is the unspent round. There could be more information that we're not aware of that is out there that could also tie Richard Allen to the arrest. But there's one thing that kind of sparks my curiosity is, was he by himself or did he do this alone? It appears that throughout the entire time that this investigation has been going out, that Doug Carter has, or the Indiana State Police and the Indiana defense or prosecution has alluded that there's potentially another person involved. I think they even said that with sealing the one of the probable cause affidavit was one of the reasons for doing that. Do you guys still feel that there is somebody else involved, or do you think that it was just Richard Allen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, absolutely the question on everyone's minds after those statements from police and law enforcement. At this point, I think personally, we're open to anything. I think what needs to happen at some point, and what hopefully the prosecution is working on, is basically having a coherent narrative of the crime. If he acted alone, what exactly happened? What led to this? If he acted in concert with others, whether directly in the crime or in other crimes that maybe surrounded it, what did that look like? And ultimately what's going to happen with Allen is going to be, the focus of his trial essentially. And they're not, if they don't have evidence to implicate other people, even if they suspect it, that may go unresolved for now.
And it's certainly very clear that the investigators continue to believe other people were involved, and they're still aggressively pursuing that. And in fact, the count of murder upon which Richard Allen was charged was basically a felony murder, which means he could be found guilty technically of committing a felony murder, even if he did not personally kill somebody. He could be found guilty if the deaths occurred as part of a felony that he was part of.
And I think we kind of keep our minds really open on stuff like this because, Alan is innocent until proven guilty. So we kind of leave headspace for him being innocent, him possibly being guilty, him acting alone, other people being involved. Like, we're not really partisans about any of those theories, but I'd say we're very interested in the fact that police and prosecutors have been saying we're still looking, essentially. And like, that really interests us because I think in the cases where it's like, we got him, then the investigation's over and you just go for trial. But that doesn't seem to be what happened here.
Got you. So do you guys find a connection, or have you heard of a connection between the search in the Wabash River after the talk to Keegan Klein and the search warrant or the search of Richard Allen's house? Those were pretty close together. There's some rumors they were connected. There's some saying that there wasn't. What are your thoughts and theories or thoughts or what you've heard on that?
Definitely. Our understanding is that they were not connected. That's our understanding at this point, based on what we've heard from sources and based on sort of what we're knowing about things going on. It's a hell of a coincidence because of the timing, right? One thing happens and then the other. But the way it felt to us was that the Allen lead kind of came up very quickly and was not necessarily as a result of anything with Kline, essentially.
Got you. And so rumors are that I guess they didn't find anything in the search. So frustrated, they went and kind of looked at everything over again, found Richard Allen's statement, and kind of put him there at the scene. You guys were at Richard Allen's house, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
And you guys walked to the back. Was there a shed back there? Did the shed appear to be disturbed?
There was a shed.
Yeah, there was a shed. I don't remember it looking disturbed. Do you?
I don't believe it did.
Yeah, I don't think so. But
obviously, law enforcement can do a search and do it in a subtle way. They're not going to go in there necessarily and tear something apart.
Mm-hmm. Did anything look out of place?
No, it really looked to me like a suburban backyard. We didn't do an extensive search. We kind of were just like, oh, wait, is anyone back here? And then we're like, get out. So it's very possible we missed things, that is to say. But things look pretty. I mean, if you didn't know that you were in the house or in the backyard of the house of a person who was just arrested for the Delphi murders, I think you'd just be like, oh, it's the chill, normal, little house, essentially.
Yeah, it's a quiet neighborhood.
Very quiet.
Jaime, I believe, do y'all have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask, since they still have the tip lines going and everything, do you think they're still looking for more solid evidence against Richard Allen?
That's a great question because it's like the investigation is still ongoing, and that kind of tells you that either they want more or they want to know, if somebody else was involved. And I don't feel like we really have a sense of how strong the case is against Allen as is. Frankly, I think we commented that we felt that there were aspects of the probable cause affidavit for his arrest that were felt a little bit thin or maybe raised some questions. That doesn't mean the case is weak because there could be a lot of things behind the scenes that are like really solid that we just don't know about yet. So it's like,
basically, if you read the probable cause affidavit, the most important piece of evidence that they outlined, and I think we've alluded to it, was that there was an unspent bullet basically found near the bodies of the girls. And they had this shell examined, and it looked to their expert as if it came from a gun owned by Richard Allen. And we've talked to a number of ballistics experts, and they gave us kind of different opinions. Some people said, no, you can't do that. The guns are mass produced, and those markings would look the same from any number of guns.
And then others said, no, you can't identify it based on that. And
so if that's their big evidence at the trial, there's some concern that may not be enough. Now, for all we know, there's other evidence they already have that they didn't reveal in the probable cause affidavit, or they may still be actively searching for still more evidence.
I'd say that, like, if people have stories or people have some sort of interaction with Allen, whatever that might be, I think, that would be something police would be interested in hearing about, and they should come forward. I know for us personally, we've interviewed a lot of people who knew him, and a lot of it's just very kind of like no red flags. So that's interesting. Like nobody, we really kind of tried to talk to as many people as possible. And naturally, we just want the honest truth. We don't want to make him look bad or good or anything. But from my assessment, a lot of the interactions with him have been good from people we talked to.
our next big chance to learn more about the evidence they have against him will come at the bail hearing. Because basically, at the bail hearing or the bond hearing, the state of Indiana has to offer up evidence to show, like, there's enough reason to keep this guy in prison or jail. And they have to have evidence more than what they have in the probable cause affidavit. So what is likely going to happen when that hearing occurs is that one of the investigators is going to testify and offer more details and more evidence. Now, originally that hearing was scheduled for next week, but it looks like it's going to be postponed, unfortunately. For us, we're curious about it.
Yeah, we want to know.
Right. Real quick, we have a $10 super chat from It's a Criming Shame. Thank you so much. Love and support from Sunny, Aspen, and Alexa and Deb. Thank you guys. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
So you guys seen Richard Allen in person. Apparently, he, from all indications and description of his appearance, he seems like a very small man. Do you guys think that is he physically capable of? Well, the bodies were. What was described that the bodies were moved. One of the girls wasn't a very small girl. So, does he look physically capable of committing this type of crime?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. He's definitely very small. That was our assessment of him. Standing next to, like, the cops guarding him, especially, he just looks like a very small man. But I mean, I tend to think like appearances can be deceiving, and without having talked to anyone who's like, oh, he was really had physical problems and maybe was not very strong, I wouldn't know. And I think when we add into that the factor of, like, now we know there was a gun involved, at least in, like, possibly intimidating the girls, that opens the possibility of, I think everyone wants to think that they would fight in a situation, but when you have your best friend with you, that, like, if you do the wrong thing, they could get hurt. And then the fact that, it's teenage girls who are like, maybe if I comply, it'll end better. I kind of think that this doesn't necessarily have to be like a very strong, physically imposing person necessarily.
And one thing I think is important to keep in mind is that he did retail work. And one aspect of it, we've talked to some people who worked with him, would be like unloading things from a truck and merchandise and stuff. And if anyone out there has done retail work, I've done it at certain times in my life, it can be physically demanding. And if you're doing that regularly, maybe you're in better shape than you look. Got you.
And so you guys also were out there in Delphi. I assume you guys walked the trail and drove around in the area. There's been one question that has kind of boggled my mind about the probable cause affidavit. And it's the fact, and I'll pull this up real quick. It's the fact that he is seen possibly driving this direction towards the old CPS building on the is that County Road 300 North. He's driving westbound. I couldn't understand why he would be heading from this direction. Some folks were saying that it might be a faster route from his house down here to go this direction up and around versus the traditional route here. It appeared that if for me at least, when I read the probable cause affidavit, that the juvenile witnesses saw him walking at a fast pace. So it appeared that he was trying to be there by a certain time. I don't understand why he would take a significantly longer route to get there.
That's an excellent point. That's something that we've talked about too. It doesn't seem to make any sense. And certainly if I was a defense attorney, that's something I would bring up. It doesn't seem like that was a logical route. Now, it's possible there's a reason for it. We just don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like, also, like, I'm so geographically turned around. So anytime I'm looking at maps, I'm just, basically, so I'm probably the worst person to comment on this, and I may get it wrong. So just caveat. But I tend to think that is odd. And I think what you highlighted too, the rush in which he was to go to a certain direction. I mean, that tells us something about the crime, in my opinion, that what exactly is the rush, or what, are you targeting these specific girls, or is there some sort of reason that is, you are in a rush at that moment. But yeah, driving that way doesn't really make a lot of sense unless there's some stops. And people have asked us, like, was he at work that day? And like, we don't know anything about like any prospective alibi for Allen. So like, I'd be very curious to know the defense, I'm sure, is going to have to at least engage with that to a certain degree. Like, where was he that day? Or is there anyone who can tell us like where he would have been coming from, I guess?
Well, the probable cause affidavit says that he says that he was there at 3:00, I believe, for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so or at I think it was maybe 1:30, but either way, he puts himself at the scene during the time of the incident, and we've pointed down the plots on the map and the time frame in which the juveniles were walking in one direction. They have a timestamp photo of where they were at on a bench. We have a guy that walked the trail, so we have an idea of how long it takes, and so it makes it pretty difficult for it not to be anybody but Richard Allen. Once you put all the time spots on there and what the witnesses are stating, and when you have the actual corroborating evidence of the timestamps from the pictures and the Hoosier Harvard store video, it kind of makes it seem like it can't be anybody but him. Have you guys, well, coming from that direction, the only thing that I could think of, or maybe not the only thing, but one thing that I could think of is a reason why is Ronald Logan's house is in that direction from there. Did you guys ever find a connection between, or have you guys seen a connection between Ronald Logan and Richard Allen?
No, just other than the fact that they're both, men who live in Delphi. We've not, we've definitely asked.
Yeah.
Also, I'll also note this for what it's worth. It's been very hard to find friends of Allen. Like in other cases, we've a bunch of people knew this guy, or here's his friend group, or at least they could identify those were his close friends. And for him, we've identified coworkers. We've not really identified people who were close to him. So it's been hard to possibly ask about connections to other figures in the case. Like you mentioned, Ron Logan. Right. We've not found anything.
Or the Klines?
No.
I believe they lived in the same city at one point, didn't they?
Yeah, spot on. It basically, the only thing we found with the Klines was geographical. So he's from Mexico, Indiana originally, and they're from Peru, Indiana, and those are right next to each other. And we've talked to people who were had mutual, 1 degree of separation essentially, but nobody who's they all knew each other. Nothing like that.
Got you. You guys have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask them, or are they going to be at the hearing next week?
Anytime there's a hearing, we're going to be there.
Unless something terrible happens.
It's actually frustrating because it's a tiny courtroom. So in order to be there and guarantee a seat, you have to show up extra early. So we usually get there a few hours before the court even opens. Now, it looks like the hearing that was scheduled for next week is actually going to be postponed because the defense filed a motion saying we need more time. We haven't gotten all the information from the prosecution yet. There's a lot of pages for us to go through in order to prepare for this. So it looks like it's going to be delayed.
Yeah.
But whenever it is, we're definitely going to be there, especially this next hearing is going to be pretty important.
We're kind of expecting a lot from the bond hearing. I mean, maybe we're wrong, but we're thinking we all might learn something. And I think some people have wondered, why has the prosecution not gotten them all the discovery yet? I think it's a huge case. It's been 5+ years and lots of tips, lots of different suspects. So I don't think it's the prosecution being stalling. I think it's an enormous amount of data for both sides to deal with. So I think giving everyone the benefit of the doubt on that probably is fair. And I think we imagine that Judge Gull, who's the judge on this, will grant the continuance because she's not going to want to be no, just cram, before a really important hearing. I think it's going to be take your time.
And it's very emotional to be in that courtroom.
Yeah.
Because, of course, on one side of the courtroom, you have a lot of the family members of the victims, people who obviously loved and cherished and missed those 2 girls. And then on the other side, you have, we happened at the last hearing to sit near the wife and mother of Richard Allen. And they were also very emotional. Just to be sitting there between those 2 sides is kind of a surreal experience, wouldn't you say?
It really is. And it's bizarre to be, because last time we were sitting in the front row of the media side, or of the public side of things. And so we were because there was no one in front of us, we were we were in the row closest to Allen himself. And it's just it's really surreal to be in a room with somebody who's someone's been arrested for the Delphi case. I mean, I think a year or so ago, a lot of us were wondering if that would happen anytime soon. So it's bizarre.
Yeah, because we were thinking about maybe going out there, but I'm not sure if you can only get entrance with a press pass or something like that. So we're trying to figure that out.
You don't need a press pass, but you have to get there extra early.
Yeah.
I think there's only, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe about 70 seats in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And they save about 20 of them for family, either family of the victims or family of Richard Allen. And so that means there's only about 50 seats, and there's usually a long line.
Well, last time there wasn't. The first hearing ever, there was a huge line. And I think some people got turned away. And then the second time, it was a bit more of a routine hearing. It only, I think, lasted 5 minutes in total. So that was fewer media people, fewer members of the public came to that. But the bond hearing, I imagine, could attract some more media attention. So if you do come, just come really early.
How far away are you from Delphi?
Oh man, we're from Texas.
We're far. I think we want to go for more like one of the main hearings.
Yeah, once the main trial comes out, and
that
we plan on being out there. Queen of the People comes in with a $3 super sticker. Thank you so much.
I had a question. Why do y'all think the change of venue was denied?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting ruling. They granted part of it. So basically they're like splitting the difference. They're like, okay, we're not going to move the trial. We're going to keep it in Carroll County. So everything will be here because it's more convenient for the families, for Richard Allen's family, and for all the witnesses. But we are going to like basically go and, conscript a jury from, not so far away, but kind of far away, Allen County, which is where Fort Wayne is. And so they kind of were like, I think it was a really hard decision because I think Judge Gull had to weigh like all these different factors. Like, am I going to make all the witnesses, families all move and like on their own expense and run around to another county, or are we? I mean, so I think she was just trying to like have two benefits, I guess, best of both worlds.
But then these jurors from Fort Wayne are going to have to come down to the Delphi area and probably stay in a hotel away from their families for 3 or 4 weeks, however long the trial lasts.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long trial and a grueling one because I mean this is 2 child murders. I mean that's gonna be a rough time for that jury. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it on both parties it's gonna be some sort of sacrifice.
Yes.
So I have a question referencing in the probable cause affidavit. There's they reference muddy, bloody guy walking down the street. Do you think that that's going to be something that's going to be used in court? I've heard a couple of different thoughts that this is somebody who's not going to be very much used. This was just that the eyewitness wasn't as reliable as could be. What are your thoughts on muddy, bloody guy?
Yeah, we've actually been talking about that a lot and trying to do some reporting on it. Because this witness, if you read the probable cause affidavit, basically says they were in a vehicle.
It doesn't
literally say they were in a vehicle, but it suggests they're in a vehicle on that road, 3300, traveling. And as they're traveling, they see a man walking down the side of the road who appeared to be bloody and muddy. And so the first thing that came to our mind is, if you're traveling in a vehicle, how well can you see someone by the side of the road? And could you see them well enough to ascertain if there's something on their clothes? How can you tell if it's mud or if it's blood or something else altogether?
Yeah, and actually what we reported recently, what we confirmed was that that witness was also the source or one of the sources for the first sketch released in the case, so the older man sketch. So that witness either contributed entirely or partially. It's not clear whether it was a composite that was compiled from multiple witnesses or just one. But that also raised questions for us because, like, how can you see the person's face? We actually did a stupid non-scientific experiment where we drove past each other while going the speed limit on a road near us. And I think we both had a hard time beyond anything, I think we were both able to tell like general things, but I don't think we would have been able to really describe much beyond that.
And as we say, this witness, the muddy, bloody witness, was one of the sources for the sketch. And if you go back and read the old news coverage from the time that sketch was released, there's some interesting comments made by law enforcement. At one point, they say that this particular witness was not close enough to the person to see their eye color, but they were close enough to see that the eyes were not blue. And what's interesting about that, first of all, that's an odd thing to say.
Also, the purchasing from a car, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say the car thing, that seems kind of hard.
Richard Allen's eyes, it's not clear what color they are, but certainly in some pictures, they almost appear to be blue.
Yeah, I think they're hazel. My best guess is light hazel, and that they almost look kind of bluish in some. That's my I don't know. That's my best guess. And we've had other people like talk about send us pictures of their eyes and they look kind of similar and their eyes are hazel, but it's rough. I mean, and like, again, I guess it kind of depends. Like, are you a passenger or are you driving? If you're driving, I'm a very paranoid driver. I'm keeping my eyes on the road. I guess some people might be, looking around, seeing what's going on, but and again, we know each other, so we know what color each other's eyes are, and right. But we still were not able to like make out those details if we were being honest. And
obviously, at least at the time they released the sketch, they found the person credible, and they found the person credible enough to include it in the probable cause affidavit. I think it's an important witness because if you're able to place someone at the scene of the crime who is dressed as Richard Allen says he was dressed, and if that person had clothes that were bloody, that's pretty significant. And if I was a prosecutor, I'd want the jury to hear about it. So I would imagine they would want to present this witness. It could be pretty important.
Now, you said that the sketch was a composite, and I think that's possibly a composite. I think I've heard the police describe it as a composite. Is it possible that the eye color came from the 3 juveniles? Do you guys know when those juveniles came forward, if that was somebody that came forward before that sketch, or was that those 3 juveniles afterwards? Or you all not know?
We don't know. We don't know exactly when the juveniles came forward. We honestly, some of the press coverage gives hints about when the sketch witness came forward, but they kind of contradict each other. Some indicate that it's like a group, like several people contributed to it, and then others indicate that it was like one witness. So it's one of those things. It's like a Rorschach test. You're just kind of like, what, and that's one of the things with the Delphi case. Oftentimes there's like contradicting information. So we kind of just hedge by saying like, we don't know whether because we know they use the, she pronouns in the affidavit.
Right.
We don't know whether she was part of a larger group. And also, I didn't know this. I thought composite sketches always referred to multiple witnesses, but apparently I was reading composite sketch textbooks. Apparently there can be one eyewitness, and the composite refers to like bringing together different facial features as opposed to different testimony. I didn't know that. I was really surprised by that because I was like, well, I've definitely interpreted it differently based on that word.
And we've seen some rumors online and elsewhere about this witness possibly having credibility problems. A lot of rumors online are spot on. A lot of rumors online turn out to be false. We are spending some time this week trying to run those down and get with the facts.
Yeah.
So I know that there was 2 different, the sketches were done by 2 different agencies. Who did the first one?
The first one that was released, which is the older man sketch, was done by the FBI. And then the second one that was released, which was actually the first one made, was done by the Indiana State Police.
So how's that for confusing? The first one released was the second one made, and the second one released was the first. Yeah.
So the old man, though, that one was done by the FBI, right?
Yeah, the older man sketch was done by the FBI.
The FBI was looking at Ronald Logan, correct? As a possible suspect. They did the search warrant on his house.
Yeah, that would definitely indicate that they were, at least involved to that degree in the Logan search. We know that there's been some speculation. Was there like a dichotomy of like, ISP versus Carroll County versus FBI? Do they all have their own suspects? I don't know if we know how much disagreement there was, but definitely at least the FBI provided resources. And, the FBI agent who wrote that probable cause affidavit also had extensive, experience in terms of like sexual crimes against children, online crimes against children. So that seems like interesting that it was someone with that expertise writing it, looking at Logan in March of 2017.
Right. Yeah, because I have a little bit of theory on the sketches. I think that the sketches was done in a certain way to try to provoke, jog somebody's memory that may have seen someone on the trail. The FBI were targeting Ronald Logan, so I thought, they purposely put out an older sketch to target that memory or of someone's memory or somebody may have seen someone. And then in 2019, did that sketch, the 2019 sketch that came out, was that made before the interrogation with Keegan Klein?
Yeah, the sketch that was released in 2019 was actually created within, I think, weeks, if not days of the crime.
Okay.
So it was made very quickly.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Kegan was arrested in, the house was raided in February of 2017, a few days, like a week or so after the murders. But then he's arrested in August 2020.
Got you. Yeah, because I thought maybe perhaps they were looking at a different angle, that they were thinking it was Ronald Logan. They cleared Ronald Logan, now started to look at the Klines, and that's why the sketch changed. That was basically my theory on it. I was kind of wondering what your thoughts on that would be.
Yeah, it's certainly possible.
It would explain some things.
But we don't know for sure.
Got you. Do you guys think that Keegan Klein is involved in some form or fashion, or do you think that these girls were just a victim of two separate heinous crimes?
I guess, as much as it pains me to say, coincidences do happen, even in high-profile cases. That's hard for the mind to grapple with, certainly hard for me to grapple with. That being said, I really would like to know more about what was going on with Anthony Schatz and who that profile and the people who ran that profile was in contact with. And, I'd want to know a lot more before I feel like we could definitively say we're not very interested in that angle anymore.
And I keep going back to a point you made earlier, which was it appeared as if the probable cause affidavit, the witness appeared to be suggesting that the man they saw was like rushing to get to a particular place at a particular time. And if that observation that the witness has made is accurate, it suggests he had some sort of foreknowledge that those victims would be there at that time. And so that raises the question of, well, how could he possibly have known that? And
I'll say, sometimes I think people expect, if someone else was involved, that means they were out in the woods that day and physically participated in the killings. And I think everybody, I'm sure, can imagine scenarios where information is shared in a way that leads to the crimes, but it's not necessarily as direct as an accomplice on the scene. So, I think we just try to keep an open mind. If it turns out the Anthony Schatz was just a red herring that has nothing to do with it, and it was just a really disturbing catfishing scenario that ended up having no bearing on what happened. Well, that's horrible that there's so many horrible people out there, and these girls had the misfortune of interacting with two of them separately. But I think we're still very highly interested on where that's going, especially in light of the comments made by the police and prosecutor.
For sure. Thank you, Alexa, for the $5 super chat. How strong do you guys, or how confident do you guys feel in this case against Richard Allen at this point? And we'll be transitioning into Brian Kohlberger and the Idaho 4. Do you guys feel, which case do you feel is stronger, Brian's or Richard Allen's?
I don't know if we can comment on which case is stronger, because we always liken the Delphi case in particular to this is kind of stupid, cheesy metaphor, but we're out. It's we're outside a house and maybe one room is lit up and then the other rooms are dark and you can't really see everything. Or maybe this house is upstairs you can't see into. So right. I feel like there could be a mountain of evidence or a dearth of evidence, and we wouldn't really know about it based on what we know right now. So I'd say, but I can conclusively say that the PCA in the Idaho case is a lot more detailed and, on the surface convincing than that in Indiana. I don't think that means that there's no evidence against Allen and, there's nothing going to come of it. I just think that on the surface, the way those things were put together shows it just seems a bit thinner in Delphi, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree that the PCA in the Kohlberger case appears to be stronger. It appears to really box him in. You read the Allen PCA, and maybe they have stronger evidence that they haven't revealed. But it's easy to come up with ways to try to explain away some of the evidence they have against him.
Yeah, and that's not just our opinion. We've talked to multiple defense attorneys, prosecutors, on the show and off the show, and they've universally had a similar assessment. Sometimes they're more, there's nuance there, but I think generally they're that's very hard to come back for Kohlberger from that PCA. Whereas Allen, they're they might have more, they probably do, but a defense attorney could make hay out of this, and that, basically. Although Allen places himself at the scene in a way that is, that does raise a lot of.
I think he placed himself at the scene. The gun, the unspent bullet is another nail, and then the eyewitness, maybe it'll be credible. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the timeline's the one that's going to do him in. The witnesses seeing them from the beginning, and he was the only one actually at that point by his own mission wearing what the witnesses said they were wearing, that he was wearing. So it's an uphill battle for him at this point.
Yeah. I think I personally see, we've been covering the Idaho 4, and I think I like the Delphi case more against Richard Allen than I do Brian Koberger. I think there's a lot of things that can be explained for Brian Koberger's case, and there's a lot of questions in Brian Koberger's case. I think they got it right. I don't want anybody to confuse that. I think the police definitely got it right, but I do have some concern. It's a criming shame asks, who originally told the red Jeep story?
Yeah, great question. So the red Jeep story is something we reported over the summer.
Yeah.
Over the summer. Time is meaningless. Basically, what we reported was that Kegan Klein was telling the police that he waited in a red Jeep while somebody else committed the Delphi murders.
Mm-hmm.
And we noted in the episode that the story is not that he was waiting in a red Jeep. The story is that is a story he told police. And we confirmed that. We verified that information before reporting it. So
we verified that he told it to police.
That was the story he told.
Right.
Whether that's true or not, we strongly noted in the episode that like Kegan Klein has a history of, telling lies. And I think that's a fair characterization of how he interacts with people and certainly authorities in this case. So for what it's worth, Kegan Klein would not be a good source. No.
If Kegan Klein called us up and said, guess what? I just told the police this. That would not be enough for us to go and report it.
No. And so we know he told that story to police, but we don't know if it's true. And I think we would definitely caution people to take a deep breath. And even if it sounds interesting, it could just be a story being told for whatever purpose. Yeah. So that's how that went down. I think a lot of people took that report as like, we were saying that, yeah, he was in the red Jeep. And like, I think it's important to look at the kind of the packaging of it, of like, this is something he's telling police that is newsworthy because it's a pretty big story that he's telling police, but
doesn't mean it's true.
Doesn't mean it's true. He can, he
has a pretty good track record of lying.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. I've heard that about Keegan. You guys so much for coming on. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time and you coming out here. Please let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, definitely. We're basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on all the major platforms. Just look up The Murder Sheet, and that's SHEET, not street. Sometimes people hear street. And then we're also on Facebook, which is just the Murder Sheet discussion group, and you can join the group and just chat with other people. We people talk about cases or cases we cover on the show or cases they'd like us to cover. So it's very well moderated and not too crazy, which is nice. But we appreciate you guys and thank you so much. We're also on YouTube. Yeah, duh.
But we're the episodes. We're a little bit slow in getting the episodes up.
Yeah, there's a gap. But like every few weeks or so, Kevin goes on a massive uploading spree. So you'll get content. You get a whole lot of content, and hopefully that'll keep people sated for a while. And
and they don't have to look at us when they watch the YouTube.
Yeah,
our logo
or our crazy bookshelves. But But listen, we've had so much fun talking with you all. Thank you so much for having us on. We really appreciate it. It was a delightful evening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hopefully we can do this again in the future. Everybody, this is the Murder Sheet YouTube channel. They have 14.2 subscribers. Let's get them up to 14.5 or 15K. Please go out there, subscribe, let them know that you came from the Drunk Turkey Show.